Thank you so much for joining us here at The Research Her, the show working to improve the health disparities for women of color, one topic at a time. I am Alicia. I'm here learning and growing with you as we research our way to well-being.
Let's just get right into it. I have yet another phenomenal woman on the podcast. I just been doing my thing. The women that I've been having are so bomb, and today is no exception. We have Ariana Taylor. This is the third Ari on this series of Aries. I don't know how that happened, but yes, it's the third and final, so that concludes our Ari series. And today's Ari is my ship, my sister. I love her dearly. She graduated this past spring from Howard Law, number 5 in her class, okay? Her class of 130, 40 something people. And, just doing her thing. She's taking the bar exam on Tuesday and Wednesday. So please send out prayers for my sister. While in law school, she actually participated in a research study, and it ended up being a legal analysis of a North Carolina House bill. I think it was like Bill 467, she said, when we talked. And it addressed the problem of human living near pig farms. And essentially what's going on is with the pig farms, the feces and urine are being put into this lagoon, and it's being sprayed, and the spray in the area is reaching the people's house, and it's just gross. It's insane. And the goal here is to make us aware of the problem. There needs to be more research out there related to some of the health issues that are happening. But yeah, let's get into Ari's story and Ari's research.
So I like to start off the show with a few icebreaker questions so that we can get to know you.
Okay.
So,
you know who I am.
If you were a rapper, what would your first single be titled?
Okay, so if I was a rapper, first I had to think about what type of rapper I would be. And I was like, I think I would be a mix between luxury rap and conscious rap. Because I like the flashy rap songs, like just talking about people being rich and doing rich people stuff. But I also know that, like, I have a responsibility to, instill a message, especially into the youth. So my first single will be called Check to Check. Mm-hmm. And, like, we grew up kind of like check to check. Even if we didn't realize it, like, our parents were living check to check. Mm-hmm. A come-up story, like a little rags to riches, like how we came from living check to check, and now we just get checks back to back.
Mm-hmm. Now, if somebody come out with that name, y'all, like, let me tell y'all, you was here first.
I have not heard a song called Check to Check. Have you?
Nope.
Yeah. And I just felt like it was perfect because, like, we grew up check to check. Now we getting checks. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, rappers, the mic check 1 2 1 2 type. Like,
yeah, I feel all that. Yes.
The bars just started coming.
Got it. Yep. Perfect. So, speaking of this ratchet tree, what is your ratchet pleasure?
I don't even know if you want to call it ratchet, but like all of the female rappers, I listen to their music like nonstop and just be twerking in my mirror. Mm-hmm. But like I love Megan Thee Stallion, like of course, City Girls, of course, Chicago Queen Key, of course, Light Skin Keisha, like all that type of music. Those are my ratchet pleasures.
Okay, and the last icebreaker question is, name one dope lawyer that you know and tell us why she or he is so dope.
I'm going to go with Pauli Murray, who is a Hustle alum, super well known or she should be more well known than she actually is, but in the civil rights movement, just because like she broke down so many barriers for people like me to be able to attain a law degree. She coined the term Jane Crow, which she talks about like how she first experienced sexism when everyone was so focused on racism. And I think it's just like so pivotal for us to remember that as a Black woman attorney, it's such a different experience for a Black male attorney. And I think she's one of the first people that really, really discussed sexism in a world of racism and just the intersectionality of that. But just being an overall dope attorney from Hustle, paving the way for people like me and doing incredible work. Also, like having volumes of poetry and writing books and being super involved in the civil rights movement. It's just someone that I really, really admire and that kind of gives me fuel to keep going.
Thank you for sharing her with us. I'm so happy that you agreed to come be on the Research Her. Lawyers are pretty much like professional researchers, right?
Research involved in any type of law practice, but someone essentially comes to you with their problem and you have to investigate that issue. So that could include looking up a whole bunch of case law, legislative history, statutes, but you do have to do an extensive amount of research, an extensive amount of reading, and kind of sparsing through that person's problem and trying to figure out a solution to it. So I like to think of it more as a problem solver. You're fixing things for people.
Did you always know that you were going to be a lawyer? Like, when did you realize, like, I want to pursue this career?
I told my mom I was going to be a lawyer when I was 10. I told her I was going to go to Howard Law, which is ironic.
That's very specific. How did you learn about Howard Law? What was it?
Don't even know. Like at 10 years old, I really don't know how I knew. I think we read something about Thurgood Marshall, and I was like, well, I'm going to go to Howard Law, and I'm going to be a lawyer, and that's that. So I knew it back then, and then when I got to college, I changed my major like 5 times because I wasn't sure anymore, and I thought I wanted to do higher education. I thought I wanted to be a teacher, and then I interned at a law firm, and that kind of brought me back to reality of my 10-year-old self telling me what I said I was going to be and just following her plan.
When did you do the internship?
The summer after my junior year.
So was that a pivotal moment for you where you were like, actually, I'm going back to that? Or were you still kind of unsure about where you were heading?
I was still unsure at that moment because even when I got that internship, I had law in my mind, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to go directly to law school. I thought I wanted to get a master's in higher education first. And just because I thought I might want to be a professor one day and that would be helpful. So when I got that internship, it was actually in the marketing department of a large law firm in Chicago. So I wasn't actually seeing a lot of the legal work. But the good thing was that I had access to the directory. So I was like emailing people that were attorneys and asking them to take me to lunch or asking them to meet me for coffee and just kind of seeing what they do on a day-to-day basis. And I think that was definitely a pivotal point for me. And actually working in the marketing department of a law firm ended up being a little bit more helpful because I understood a law firm as a business and not just what the lawyers do on their day-to-day basis. So for me, it worked out really, really well. And it kind of brought me back to what I really wanted to do and what I was really interested in. And yeah, it made me realize that I could do it.
So you started pursuing a master's program and you left. What was I know what happened, but can you share a little bit more about where your mind was and like what was the program and why did you decide like I'm done with this?
So, okay, that was the master's in higher education. So I still decided to pursue it. And I think that, so I was an RA in undergrad, a resident advisor. And I think that when you're an RA, you kind of get caught up in the higher education vortex because you're around all these people that have their master's in higher education and you kind of see the life they're living and it seems kind of sweet. You know what I mean? Like they essentially are still kind of living a college life, but with a check. So you're like, oh, I could do this. Like you're already like doing programming for being an RA. So you're like, oh, I love impacting students. You get feel goods from that. So I thought maybe I could do higher education. So I pursued a whole master's program. Like I applied to a bunch of different schools. I ended up getting into like amazing schools. The school that I was going to gave me a full ride plus a stipend to be a research assistant. So I'm basically getting a master's degree for free. So I was like, what's the problem? Like, even if I don't use it, it's a free master's, you know? But during that process, I still knew I wanted to go to law school. So day one at this new school in this master's program, I'm sitting on the quad with my LSAT prep books, which should have told you from jump that clearly I was not that interested in the master's program if I'm already focused on the next degree I'm trying to get. So I start the program and it's fine. The people are nice. Everyone's cool, but I just had no passion for it. Like nothing in it was exciting to me. So I spent all of my free time studying for the LSAT. So after 2 weeks, I'm like, why are you here? Why are you here studying this other stuff? Of getting frustrated when that takes you away from studying for the LSAT when you could just be studying for the LSAT. So I called up the law firm that I worked at, that I interned at over the summer when I was in undergrad, and they had openings. It was not the practice group I wanted, but it was in insurance and financial securities. When I got hired there as essentially a paralegal, I dropped out of my master's program and told them that I would see them when I saw them.
So how was the LSAT then? You're preparing while you're at the firm, or how was the process of studying for the LSAT for you?
Going back to the firm to work, basically I worked full time. They knew that I wanted to go to law school. It was actually a program where you weren't really supposed to be in that position for more than 2 years because they had an expectation that you were going to law school. So I took a prep course and I would basically work from like 8 until whatever I needed to get done was done. And then I would go to my LSAT prep course and I would be there till like 11:30 at night. And then I would go home and try to get a little bit more work done, wake up in the morning and do the same thing. Weekends, I would take my practice exams.
So you dropped out of a master's program, right? That's essentially, that's what everybody sees on the outside is you dropped out of your master's program with you're not accepted to law school yet. You don't know if you will be accepted, how you're going to do on the LSAT, nothing. What are people around you saying? How are you feeling? Is there any anxiety going on? Or like, how was being in that space of just the not knowing or the, I already know, I'm just going to show y'all?
I think I already knew. I'm very big on if it doesn't feel right, then don't do it. So for me, it's like I'm the one that has to live my life. So my family is looking at me like, you're giving up a free degree. What's wrong with you? You don't have anything solidified. Like literally, what are you doing? So I'm very big on like taking control of my own life. And I feel like that even to this day. Like if I'm going into a practice group and I don't like it, I'm the only one that has to get up and do that thing every day. So one thing about me, you know this, but I travel a lot. I've literally seen 800 different ways that I could live my life. So when someone tries to tell me you have to follow this plan, I'm like, no, I don't. If I hate all of this, I could get up, move to Maui, become a yoga instructor and still be okay. Like, don't tell me that I have to do anything. So for me, I was getting up every day, not enjoying my life, and I didn't like that. So I was going to change it. So people can look at me crazy, but I had a plan. And I think that what gave my family specifically some type of comfort is that I did not drop out of that program until I got a job somewhere else. Even when I presented it to the people that I was working for, I told them that I had this other job opportunity that was more in alignment with what I wanted to do long term. This is going to help me get into law school. But to this day, at my graduation, they were like, we were with you when you were uncertain about what you wanted to do and kept walking around and changing. I'm like, yeah, thank you.
You knew you were going to law school. It wasn't a matter of whether you were going to do it. It was a matter of when.
And I'm very good at rationalizing things. Like, I can convince myself that anything is the right thing. I had convinced myself that this master's was going to help me get into law school. And then as I'm talking to attorneys, they're like, that shit does not mean anything. Like, you're doing that. It was essentially going to be a waste of 2 years. And I was like, I could sit here and waste these 2 years getting this degree that I'm never going to use. Or I could start pursuing the degree that I actually want. Dropping out was not the mistake.
Going
to that program was the mistake.
Got it. So there was a process for you to get into law, like to start applying for law programs. You had to figure out where you were going to go. Obviously, since you were 10, you knew you were going to go to Howard Law, but you know, you want to keep your options open and apply to other programs. So what were your criteria when you were applying for different schools?
Okay, so I had a lot of criteria. So I had set in my head, like, okay, you need to get this LSAT score. So I wanted like a really high LSAT score so that I could have as many options as possible. But the main thing for me was, where were alumni from that university going? So what I found was that a lot of alumni at a lot of universities stay locally. And I am not one of those people that necessarily wants to stay in one place for a very long time. So I wanted a school that had a really, really broad and strong network. Because, okay, I go to school in Chicago, that doesn't necessarily mean I want to work in Chicago for the rest of my life. And that was really big for me, as well as money. So how much is your tuition? What type of scholarship can I get? How much am I going to make? How much do your alumni generally make upon completion of the program? And then, of course, the people. Like, how do I feel here? What type of professors do you have? Who am I going to be around? Like, am I going to be comfortable being my true, authentic self at that university? So, of course, as I say these things, Howard makes the most sense for me. But I definitely applied to a bunch of other schools. I got into a lot of great schools. It really came down to when I visited the campus, I just felt at home at Howard. It was just dope. Like, I could talk to people, like walk into administration's office and like tell them all of my issues. Yeah, it just made the most sense. And then their alumni network, one thing that sold me was Howard is in DC. I'm currently working in Chicago at this time, and they set up a dinner of all of the Howard Law alumni that are working in Chicago. So for me, I'm like, that's dope, because yeah, most people that are in these DC schools, honestly, are either going to stay in DC or going to go to New York. But the fact that you can set up a dinner where it's me, one other admitted student, and 8 to 10 alumni in Chicago, and they all know each other and they're all close, despite them having graduated maybe 5, some 10 years apart. I named someone that graduated in 1987 and they all know who that person is. Like, that type of network. And then them reaching out to me, not even starting school yet, saying that like, oh, if you ever need anything, you can call me, any advice. That really sold it for me, because I was like, this is what I want. Like, maybe I'll start my career in DC and want to come back to Chicago. I know I got a Howard network there, you know?
Mm-hmm. So you said something about like a lot of people go to New York. Why do people go to New York?
It's a home base for a lot of large law firms, and there's just a crazy amount of work, especially transactional work out of New York. Like, it's just a hub for a lot of legal services.
Okay, got it. Did you feel prepared as you were entering law school? Specifically, like, is L1 as hard as you thought it would be? L1?
1L. 1L. 1L, yeah. I was gonna say it, you know, how you correct people subtly, when you don't correct them, you just say it the right way and hope they catch it.
Hope they catch it. Yep. Nope. Not my field. Not my field.
You don't need to do it. It's harder than I thought it was gonna be. So I thought I was prepared for law school and got quickly humbled. The hard part about 1L year, honestly, yes, it's a steep learning curve, and the level of work that is required from you is extremely difficult. But the biggest thing is you don't have the confidence. Like, you do not have any type of self-assurance in anything that you're doing. So, of course, like when you start school, just like with any program, you have older people telling you, like, make sure you do X, Y, and Z. So make sure you do all your readings. Make sure you brief all your cases. Make sure you're doing practice problems and going to your TA and to your professor, blah, blah, blah. So you're like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do all that. So you do all that. And 2 weeks in, you find out that one of those things you're doing completely wrong, right? Now your confidence is shot on everything that you've done. So you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. So you spend so much time, or at least I did, and I think most people do, just second guessing yourself and not being confident in the fact that you're doing everything that you're supposed to do, and feeling like everyone around you is doing more than you. Like, you always feel like the person sitting next to you is grinding 10 times harder than you. So when people say like second and third year of law school get easier, no, it doesn't. The work actually gets easier, and the teachers actually have higher expectations of you and your work product. You're just more confident. Like, you're not second guessing everything you're doing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it's hard. Like, it's very, very difficult. And I was not prepared for how difficult or how time consuming it was going to be. Like when people say you're 1L year, you're literally in the library or wherever it is you study all day, just reading. Because I'm trying to look up every word that I don't know, trying to reread to understand what the hell this sentence meant. I don't know what any of this stuff is. I'm trying to cross-reference it from one book to another book to another book. And it just takes so much time.
So you mentioned you're in the library all day in class. You spent most of your time with a partner during your time in law school. So how was it balancing law school with love?
Yep, I spent all my time with this.
So yeah, I hear what you're asking me, but yeah, like I said, spent all my time. Okay.
Yeah, so I've had the same partner since my freshman year of college, undergrad. And the first year of law school, he didn't live in DC. He was working in Kansas City, Missouri. I had told him
Missouri.
Missouri.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yep.
Got
Yep.
it.
Mm-hmm. I told him from jump, like, I'm about to be busy. Like, I'm about to spend all of my time working on law school. Luckily for me, he was super understanding of that. Like, I would say, okay, I could take a 20-minute study break and I would call him on the phone. At 21 minutes, if I'm still talking, he would be like, Ari, you said 20 minutes. I'm like, I know, but I can still talk. He said, no, you said 20 minutes. Your 20 minutes is up. Go finish what you said you were going to finish. So he kind of kept me in check. I think that having a partner that's not here and that's not in law school was super helpful for me to stay focused my 1L year. Just because, like, especially in a place like Howard, you got a bunch of Black people in a high stress environment. So you know it's going to be some drama because people get bored. Like, you get bored of just studying, you know? Having a partner kept me out of a lot of that drama so I could really focus on what I came there for. And I'm grateful for that. And you don't want to get involved in like the BS your first year because it really takes your focus off of all your work. And 1L year is the most important year for you. So for me, it was kind of simple because I had someone that had been down with me for years that understood why I was there and kept me away from all of the drama. So me balancing law and love was easy that first year. Second year, he moved out here and we started living together. And that actually became more complicated because I need to be studying, but he's at home. So, of course, I want to like go and be with him. So that was actually more complicated, but I just had to like kind of regroup and remember why I was there. He was actually probably better about it than I was, like making sure that I stayed on track and making sure that I stayed on task. But I think him being here 1L year would have been detrimental, but the long distance for me that first year actually helped.
Yeah, and I think it is helpful when you have a partner who understands like what it means to be in law school and like the dedication and the time that it takes and being able to tell you like, I know we want to lay up under each other the whole day. But shorty, you need to go to the library, okay? You need to get to the desk. You need to do something outside of us because that's the best feeling is just being able to live carefree under your love, you know, just without thinking about anything. But I think it kind of helps to know that someone is like literally telling you like, yeah, we could do this, but you're going to regret it on Monday when you got to take that exam or whatever you guys do in law school.
Yeah, and also like he was busy too. So I think that's another like key thing. You can't have a partner in law school where they have absolutely nothing to do and they're just like sitting around waiting for you, because that person is going to be way less understanding of your schedule. And if you're not in law school specifically, you don't understand how difficult it truly is. So if I tell you I've been in the library all day, you think like, okay, you're done. Just spend time on me. And I'm like, no, now I got to go do a practice exam. And they like, so it was helpful that he also had a lot of things on his plate too. So he was super busy as well. So he wasn't just like running up under me, waiting on me, you know? That wouldn't have worked. So if you're going to do it, I say don't date someone who's not doing shit. Like they need to have their own life together so that they're not sitting around waiting on you, because guess what they're going to end up doing? Waiting. Or you going to end up not studying. And when your grades come out, you're going to be blaming them. Also, when I first came to law school, I was at like a like a law school prep course that I took for like a week before I started. And one of the first things they told us was like, if you're not married and you're in a relationship, you should break up now because you're probably going to break up during 1L year.
Oh, that was part of the curriculum.
Basically.
Okay, got it.
And also telling me to tell my mama I wasn't going to talk to her every day. I said, you try to tell my mama I'm not going to talk to her.
And then it's crazy because you go to Howard, right? So they all got black mamas. It's not like you went to a PWI and no, like, I got a black mama. I think we all got black mamas. Who are you talking to? Who in this crowd are you talking to?
I was telling me this though. This was an outside course, not Howard. Howard people definitely told me to break up with my boyfriend. The mama part, they ain't say that, but the boyfriend part, they definitely told me to break up with him because it was gonna end anyway. They were like, it's gonna end anyway. You might as well end it now so you're not crying before finals. And I will say that a lot of people that I know did end their relationships during that first year. And we're just like one of the few that survived it. Like I have at least 5 friends that 1 year destroyed their relationship. So I get why they were saying it, but you don't know my life. You don't know me. You don't know my man. So we gonna ride this out. And if you right, cool. But like I said from jump, this is my life that I have to lead. So how salty would I have been if I broke up with this person? Not because I wanted to, but because y'all are all telling me I have to. And then I still get trash ass grade. Like, then I'm going to be real mad.
Okay, so a little bit of a transition here. That was wonderful. I appreciated everything you said there. So during your time in law school, you did a research project, right? How did that come about? Is that just part of the program?
So I'm on law review.
What is law review?
Every school has a law review and law journals. And at Howard, I'm on the Human and Civil Rights Law Review. So we release 1 issue a year that is a compilation of academic articles called Notes and Comments that deal with human and civil rights. So as a member of the law review, everyone has to complete a note of publishable quality. So for me as a member, it was a requirement that I completed this note, which is essentially a scholarly article with legal analysis of any topic that dealt with human and civil rights. That's how I was able to conduct my research. At Howard, I know for sure you have to have a Legal 3 requirement, which is a 25-page research type project. So everyone has to do some type of academic scholarship or scholarly writing. But for me, mine had to be focused on human and civil rights. And I wanted it to be about something that I actually cared about. So that's how I was able to do that. My note that'll be published next year is called Life Next to a Million Tons of Feces. And it's a legal analysis of North Carolina's House Bill 467. So basically, in North Carolina, is the second largest producer of pork in the country, second to Iowa. That means there's a whole lot of hog farms, so where they raise pigs to be slaughtered for meat. People live in a close enough proximity to these hog farms, more importantly, to where they dispose of their waste. When you have a whole bunch of pigs on a farm, it's industrial agriculture now. So like basically these pigs live in these metal barns where they crap into the floor. That crap is funneled into a pool called a lagoon. So it's just a whole bunch of untreated pig urine, blood, feces sitting there. And they spray it onto fields as fertilizer and also to stop the lagoons from overflowing. The problem is people live near these fields that have the shit sprayed onto them, essentially, and they live near these lagoons. So what happened was a lot of people would file nuisance claims against the industrial agricultures. This bill that came out capped the amount of damages that a person could receive from these industrial agricultural for a nuisance claim. And it was capped at the fair market value of the house. So, of course, the property value is diminished because it's next to a big pile of shit. So these people basically weren't able to have any type of adequate redress for their damages, for their suffering. So I wanted to do an analysis of that bill and the implications that it had and some alternative solutions to the waste disposal methods that pig farmers and industrial agriculturalists in general were using. There's so many different ways that you can dispose of hog waste That does not include spraying it on someone's house or someone's property. But
can you go into it a little bit? What are your other options?
So the biggest one that a lot of smaller farms have started using is you can convert the waste into energy. That does cost more money, which is the reason that a lot of farms try not to use it. But a lot of these companies are multi-billion-dollar industries, and there have been a lot of smaller farms that have been able to use those methods or these more sustainable methods and still turn a very large profit. So it's completely plausible. The University of North Carolina actually did a study on like 10 different ways that you could dispose of the waste that did not include the lagoons, because a bigger issue that comes out of having these large pools is that it can seep into water supply. So drinking water supply can get contaminated. There have been several hurricanes, and when there's a hurricane and there's a pool of feces, like we can kind of guess what happens. The spillage, and it gets everywhere and contaminates even more than just the fields that it's getting, or the homes and properties that it's getting sprayed on. So there have been a lot of environmentalists that are concerned with this issue, a lot of economists that are concerned with the issue. But the biggest thing, and what I wanted to focus on, was how can we make sure that these industrial agricultural farms are still turning a profit? Because at the end of the day, everything kind of boils down to how much it costs, because pig farmers still want to make money. Like, it's a very lucrative business. So if I'm just saying, like, care about the environment, care about these people, clearly they don't do that. Like, clearly they haven't done that. So that's not going to work. Like, we have to give them a solution that makes economical sense to them and still leaves them at an advantage, which is kind of like, it's messed up. Like, people should just care about the environment and care about other people, but large companies don't. I was really focused on, like, how can I make sense financially for them as well as environmentally and humanely.
Did you have any emotional ties to this project?
So I definitely had it. That's kind of what got me interested in the topic in the first place. Like, I'm really big on healthy eating and sustainable eating and just kind of reducing your carbon footprint in general. But what I've learned is that a lot of people might not be triggered by that, but they are triggered by watching other humans suffer from their practices. So for me, it was like, I don't eat pork. I don't eat beef. And this is no shade to anyone, like no shade to PETA, but it's not because I am like super loving and caring about animals. Like, I love animals, of course, but for me, it's more so the production of that meat and the effects that it has. So when I saw that in order to eat a slice of bacon, this is what a family has to endure, specifically a family of color. Because let's be clear, the people that live in these impoverished areas look like me and you. So you're seeing a Black family that has owned this property for 50 plus years, and they're talking about, because there's countless interviews, if you Google it, of people in North Carolina, when they're talking about how, like, they can't go outside and sit on their porch because they don't know when the farm is going to spray. Or they have a grandchild who now has asthma and a whole bunch of other diseases that came out of nowhere. Now they can't afford to, like, tend to their child's medical care. Or, like, there's, like, brown shit all over the side of their house, like small, like, specks of brown shit all over their house. Or they can't have a barbecue, like, on a typical because they don't know if when the guests come, it's going to smell like shit. Like,
so all that pig being produced and they can't eat none of it on their barbecue grill.
Exactly. So we live next to a pig farm, but we can't even grill some fucking pork chops. Like, that is problematic to me. There's actually a lot of case law now, because in the last, I want to say, year or so, before the bill came into effect, there were major class action lawsuits against some of the large hog farms. So just reading the facts of those cases and people talking about how they would just see trucks in the middle of the night with dead pigs driving by their houses. I didn't grow up on a farm. I grew up in Chicago, but I couldn't imagine that the cost of eating a pork chop is that people that look like me, that probably look like just like my family that lives in Tennessee and Mississippi, can't enjoy their lives and are having all these types of health implications. So I was mad. I was mad as hell researching. I was mad as hell writing up what I found in my research. It just, like, infuriated me that people could cause other people to live like this without even thinking about it, just so that they could turn a profit. But this is America, so
This is America. Do you have any idea of what would be a good follow-up study to what you've done, or something that you feel would be intriguing to know that's related to this particular area of study?
for me, like I said, mine was more of a legal analysis of like the implications of this bill and other ways that people could attain adequate redress for their issues. So what I would be interested in seeing are what exactly are all of the health implications of living next to untreated pig shit. There's studies that kind of sort of show some of the implications, but it was difficult for me to find an exact correlation between living next to fecal matter and the health implications that these people were seeing.
Love it. I think that would be a very great study. I'm sure someone probably started, but I think that it seems like such a complex study. And because it involves people of color, if another person of color hasn't done it, it probably just hasn't gotten done. Honestly, that's just kind of how research is.
I don't feel like even in shit is bad for you. It's like just having actual data. And like you said, it has to be someone that actually cares about the topic and the people that are affected by it, which is more than likely going to be someone like us.
So if you're listening to this and you know of any studies related to that, shoot me an email or contact me. I would love to learn a little bit more about it, and then I can share it with Ari.
Thank you.
So law school was no walk in the park, right? So what kept you going? What kept you inspired?
So my family has always been like my biggest inspiration. My grandfather definitely always encouraged us to go to school and to reach whatever level it is that we wanted to reach. He himself went to college when he was 15 and had to drop out in order to come back and take care of his family. One of the most brilliant people I've ever met in my entire life. So just making sure that I continue his legacy was always important for me. You know, I got a whole lot of brothers and sisters. And so I have 6 brothers and sisters. I have an older sister on my dad's side, but in my household, I was always the oldest. So for me, making sure that I set an example for my younger brothers and sisters so that they knew that whatever it is that they wanted to do, they could achieve. And telling them from the beginning that I wanted to be a lawyer, that I had these goals in mind for when I was in law school, and making sure that I stuck to them so that they know when they set their mind to something, like stick to it and you can accomplish it. And then I also, like at the beginning of every semester, would write out my goals and kind of put them around my room so that I would remember why I was here and like what exactly I was working towards. And one year, one of my professors, Dean Dark, who I love, like love her, on I think the first day of class, she made us write a letter to ourselves about why we went to law school, why we were there, what we wanted to achieve. And then she mailed it to us, and it arrived in my mailbox the day before my first final. First off, she's dope for that. Second off, it just kind of like puts you back into why you were there. So I just think like constantly reminding yourself like why you went to law school in the first place. Like I knew I wanted to help people, show people from my community and show my family that I could do whatever it is that I wanted to do. And just constantly reminding yourself of that, because you can get really, really wrapped up in everything that law school is, and you doubt yourself so much, and you kind of forget why you're there. So that's what kind of kept me motivated, just constantly reminding myself of the reasons that I came there in the first place.
That's important too, because if you lose sight of why you're there, like everything else just comes crumbling. It just does. Yeah. Like that's why like a lot of like, you know, you read these self-help books and things, like always know your why, because if you know your why, it'll help you like stay with your eyes on that. You know, if it's a dark tunnel, it keeps your eye on the light in the dark tunnel. So do you have any closing words you want to leave us with?
Well, one, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very, very excited to see where the Research Her podcast goes. It's been doing bomb and like blowing up all over the map. So shout out to you, number one. Number two, I guess to just anyone that wants to go to law school or is kind of thinking about it, just know that you can do it, especially young Black men and women. We need more of us. It's still one of the least diverse fields. Especially white-collar professions. I think it is the least diverse field, and we need people to advocate for our interests and we are the only ones that are going to advocate for our best interests. And I've seen so many lawyers that have made me know that I can be a lawyer. Never second guess yourself and know that you can do it and that we need you.
Yes, we do. We need you because your brothers and sisters need some good representation out here. Well, Ship, you're dope AF, but you already know that, and I love you so much, and I appreciate you so much for being here. So we're done now, but I'm about to irritate you for 30 more minutes of your life. So okay.
Right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for listening. And to connect with Ari, go ahead and follow her on Instagram. She is at Ari Milan and also on LinkedIn. So both of those links will be in the show notes. She is a travel goddess, okay? So if you gonna be the one missing out if you don't go follow her on Instagram, I'm sure that once she's done taking this bar exam, she about to drop us some new heat from somebody's heated country. We'll see. But I am at The Research Her on all the socials, and you can reach me at theresearchher.com. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any research topics that you want to address. And until next time, I holla.